What's up guys, this is Nick at Stridewise.com, where we look at casual, durable men's stuff. A lot of that is boots and shoes. But I've spent like 6 of the last 12 months traveling around Asia. A lot of that has been to seeing friends. A lot of it has been making content for this YouTube channel. I'm gonna put all the Asia videos that are out right now in the description below. But there's a lot of stuff that I saw in my travels that I didn't really have any space to put into a video on this channel. So this is, I don't know how this is gonna be, like 9 or 10 interesting things I saw in Asia on my travels that have to do with this sort of side of menswear, right? The first of it is tattooed shoes. I went to Tormali, which is a small brand in Kolkata in India, and they don't even have a website. He keeps telling me he's gonna bring it back online and then I'll put out my videos on it. But what's cool about Tormali is there's a brand about customizing leather shoes. But Raul, the guy that owns it, tells me that in Uttar Pradesh, where he's from, there's like actually like a long tradition of leather craft, including sort of inking or tattooing leather shoes. So he brought that tradition into his current store. He also colors the shoes and he also like carves into the shoes. So a lot of these, like these dragons, like the scales are actually 3D because he's got this little workshop in Lucknow. And yeah, you can get it from the store. Otherwise right now, you can DM them on Instagram and see what they might be able to do for you. Another cool thing I saw in Asia was in Ho Chi Minh City. I've got a friend who's been living there for 10 years. We used to teach together when I lived in Shanghai in a previous lifetime. And he uncovered this world of raw denim and boot fans, which you might be surprised by because it's a very hot and sticky kind of place. But nonetheless, there are guys there who get really into this very American heritage sort of menswear. And they've got like all these classic influential American brands like Westco and Red Wing, and they even have the really, really thick denim. Big part of it is that a lot of people ride motorbikes or scooters, so they like it for the protection that offers, they like the sun protection, and also they sweat so much in these, they get really dramatic fades, which is a big part of this kind of subculture. I've got a video coming out with like an interview with those guys to see what that whole thing's about. Another weird thing I saw, elephant leather. This was in a store in Vietnam as well, and it was wild. It's a store that sort of does make to order footwear for you. And one of the leathers, 2 of the leathers were elephant leather. And at first blush, I was kind of repulsed by it. They're pretty famously an endangered species. And so I did this kind of ill-advised post on Instagram where I complained about it. I was like, I can't believe people are selling this. And then I got a bunch of other angry people in the comments saying that no, there's such a thing as certified sustainable elephant leather. You look for these words, these letters CITES, and that's like some regulating body that ensures the elephants from an elephant preserve. And then the money that the preserves make from selling the animal hides, that helps them to run the preserves and thereby sustain the elephant population. And it's a whole thing. A lot of people think that's all kind of baloney and it's too easy to fake. Other people think it's totally legit. Here's a shot of it. My friend CJ has a pair here in Brooklyn. So I just didn't think I'd ever find legal elephant leather, but I found legal-ish elephant leather. Another weird thing I found, check this out. This is from Red Wing, Japan, and they make these little engineer boots. It's not just engineer boots, they'll do like tiny little versions of Red Wing's most influential boots. You may or may not know, Red Wing is probably the most influential American heritage boot brand. And they have a really devoted following all over the world, but especially in Japan. There's this whole subculture in Japan called amikaji, and they really like sort of like 1950s workwear sort of look, right? This website, Stridewise, and the second article I ever did was an interview with Red Wing's Japan CEO. Maybe because I'm a foreigner living in America, maybe it's because I studied sociology or whatever, I'm just very interested in the ways this subculture around hard-wearing American vintage workwear not only has a following here in the US, but also it has followings all over the world. And I actually did a video on that here at Stone a couple years ago in the description below called Japanese Red Wings that you can't buy. Another very weird thing I saw in Asia, there's this Vietnamese brand called CNES, and they might be like the biggest Goodyear welted brand in Vietnam. In like the boot space, there's often a kind of rivalry between guys that like loafers and guys that hate loafers. And then there's this, which is like the loafer boot. Like it's made just like a penny loafer, but it's got the shaft of a boot and also a side zip to boot. So that's the 3 animals of a chimera right there. I just thought this was like a very funny sort of mutant shoe. There's also this one that the same company makes, which is like a laced up Chelsea, which is also broad, just to add an extra third thing in there. And then this one, which might have been the most interesting one, which is a Chelsea boot that's also a tassel loafer that's also a mock toe. I never considered any of these a possibility, and yet this brand has 3 absolute mutant super boots that I thought were really fascinating. So CNES, the website I think is only in Vietnamese, but if you do the Google Translate option, you might be able to make your way through the system and order yourself a pair. Another one is, speaking of hybrid boots, this is the mock toe chukka boot from Bridlen in India. My mate Carl got himself a pair. and we called it the mokka. We thought that was just a very classic, important word for it. And it's also made with kudu suede as well, which is a type of antelope. I thought that was pretty cool. And speaking of Bridlen, that's a brand in Chennai, India that I visited. But the tour through their factory was really interesting because Bridlen has hybridized a bunch of stuff from shoemaking that I found really fascinating, because at this point, I've gone to a lot of shoe factories all over the world, and there were like 3 or 4 things that I'd never seen before at Bridlen. And the word that I kept coming back to was hybridization. So I'll just mention these 3 examples of all the hybrid stuff they do there. Number 1, for a shank, which is something you put in a boot to increase stability. Normally it's either leather or steel or something else. Their shank is leather with steel on top of it. They also line their boots, but they do it without glue, which is incredibly rare. Normally you use a ton of glue when you're lining boots. But they managed to combine the benefits of lining, which is like it helps with the shape and maybe with the comfort, with the benefits of an unlined boot, which is that it breathes better because they did the lining without glue. And the main thing that was interesting about them, the hybrid Goodyear welt hand welt process. And I'm getting really nerdy here, but basically, when you make a resolable boot, usually it's a Goodyear welt. If it's really old-fashioned, it's hand welted, which Goodyear welts were meant to replace. And they combined elements of the hand welt and the Goodyear welt. They use a Goodyear welt machine, but through a channeled insole, not using the canvas rib. So it's like the benefits of both. I thought that was really interesting. I probably lost a whole bunch of viewers by getting into that, but if you like shoes, you should check out that video. Another weird thing I saw are fake Red Wings. Bootleg boots, of course, is the right way to talk about that. That's in Ho Chi Minh City as well, where I spent most of my time. And I got a pair of them and I sent them to Rosanville, which is a much more popular boot channel. And he actually cut them in half and talked trash about them. I'll put that in the description below as well. But yeah, fake Red Wing Iron Ranges, fake Wolverine boots, and fake Red Wing mock toes. Another weird thing, in a place called Gurgaon outside of Delhi in India, there is a brand called Craft and Glory that a lot of people are getting more familiar with. They make very inexpensive boots. What's interesting about them is part of their mission, like to sell their boots, they have to also explain to their audience in India what a Goodyear welt is and why it's important, because it's not quite so much of the culture there to have Goodyear welted boots. So you go to their website, usually a video auto plays with people talking about like what is a Goodyear welt. What's interesting about them is they don't do Goodyear welts, they do hand welts. And again, Goodyear welting is a machine that replaced hand welting in like the 1860s. Goodyear welts takes like, I don't know, under a minute. Hand welting usually takes like a long time. I hand welted a boot once, it took me like all afternoon. What's very funny is hand welting is more laborious and artistic and arguably more durable. Craft and Glory, they don't do Goodyear welting because they couldn't afford the machines when I was there. I think they have some by now, but what was really interesting is that they were making hand welted boots, which a lot of people get really crazy for and pay top dollar for. But they sold them as Goodyear welted boots because it's hard enough to explain what a Goodyear welt is, let alone what a hand welt is and why that's just as good as Goodyear welting, which it's more Googleable and has more name recognition, right? So I thought it was very interesting that they were selling what you could pretty easily argue is a superior product to what they were advertising. Like it was like fake advertising, but not in a way to make them seem better than they were. If anything, it was to make them seem like worse than they were or cheaper than they were, right? Another really interesting thing about Craft and Glory, all of their boots, when I was there, I think they've got like a premium line now, but when I was there, all of the leather for their boots was buffalo leather, which is kind of cool, but it's not American buffalo. If you hear buffalo leather, you're probably expecting bison leather, but it's actually water buffalo leather, which they don't say on the side, it says buffalo. It's Asian water buffalo that they use, which is not necessarily a bad thing at all, it just has a very different look than what you might expect. Like this is what bison leather typically looks like, American buffalo, whereas the Asian water buffalo leather is quite different. It was just interesting going to Craft and Glory, and the 2 things I knew about them was like, oh yeah, Goodyear welted brand, does a lot of buffalo. And it was like, no, actually it's hand welted, and actually it's Asian water buffalo. I wanna go to Indonesia now for the next one. Indonesia, I went to 3 different workshops there, and one thing that honestly struck me the most about them is how much horsebutt they use. Really thick, vegetable tanned Mariam horsebutt leather. One of the brands I spoke to, I think it was Bristle Black, if not Underhoud.
Hampir 70% mereka suka horsebutt. Lebih fokus ke horsebutt leather.
He said that more than 50% of their orders were horse leather from this Italian tannery, Mariam. I just thought it was very interesting in that this is a really quantifiable way to be like, it's only the real biggest American boot nerds who buy boots from Indonesia, and what is a boot nerd like? The boot nerd really likes natural vegetarian horsebutt leather. Another really kind of weird and memorable thing I saw was at Blkbrd Shoemaker. They're in Agra, home of the Taj Mahal. They're the ones who flew me out to India from Vietnam, so it was a cheap flight, but still I'm very grateful to Blkbrd for taking me out there. And there's a couple of things I saw. Number one was that the workers liked to hand welt shoes holding them with their feet. For a minute I was like, do you deny these people chairs or something? And he's like, no, this is like, traditionally this is how they like to do it because they grip the shoe with their feet. and then they hand welt them by hand like that, and it gives them extra sort of an extra secure grip, which is interesting because I'd seen hand welting done in Indonesia and other places before that. But this is a particularly Indian way of doing it, it looks like. The other thing that I really found very interesting that I didn't even know was possible, they do a hole cut shoe with no seam. So when I say hole cut, it's one piece of leather, and normally what that means is it's one piece of leather that they've stretched around the last and they've sewn it at the back, right? So you might have seen hole cut Chelsea boots. There's also plenty of hole cut dress shoes out there. That is hard to do. It takes a lot of craftsmanship. And what I'd never seen before and literally didn't know was possible was hole cut without seams. So I took this shot on my phone, and I swear they basically like put the last on this piece of leather and kind of just pull the leather up over the shoe, and then eventually they kind of snip it off at the top where the foot goes in, and it's all one piece of leather without any seams anywhere. I thought that was fascinating, and they're pulling it off at Blkbrd. So if you reach out to them, if you want a hole cut, no seam shoe, I doubt you'll ever meet another single person who has a pair. All right, man, that's just some of the most interesting shoe things I saw in Asia. A lot of those were very, very niche, and you had to know a lot about boots to know just how weird and surprising they were. Some of them I think might have been kind of interesting to anyone who might have clicked on this video. Either way, on this channel, if you just went up here, I do a lot of stuff on casual durable menswear, especially boots and shoes. And I've also been doing a lot of travel stuff lately as well. So all my travel videos in the description below, and subscribe here for stuff that's travel-y, but also informative about the world of casual durable men's stuff. And I'll catch you with the next one. Thanks.